Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Steve Ramona. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast. Steve Ramona. We're all about to talk on life. Our guest will share his life story. We want you to success in life. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk on life. We're gonna talk on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are gonna witness. Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast.
You just did it for me. That's why I took a sign. I'm like, I just felt this calm because your resources you have.
I want to invite you into the Business Network, my free school community for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to grow their network and scale their business. Inside, you'll get step-by-step lessons, monthly workshops, feedback, scripts, resources, bonuses, and a community of like-minded people who believe in helping each other win. Join us today at school.com, the Business Network, or click the link in the description and click Join Group. I'll see you inside.
One. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona, and I am really fired up today because, I love sports and I love business. And when you put those two together and you can be more successful, game changer. And I love it. And you know what? It's pretty happy when you're successful in whatever endeavor you're doing. Before we launch with my great guest, here's our gratitude for today. You're amazing because you always do the best you can no matter what. And I'm going to say I just met my guest, and he's definitely doing the best anytime he can. And in sports, yeah, we have those coaches that scream and yell at us, and maybe a Bill Belichick, or I can't think of other coaches' names that, he's NHL and NFL that scream and yell. It comes from the heart. But you know what? We just need to love each other and love sports together, whether we like the team or not. So let's jump in because I can go on and on. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. Excited to be here.
I didn't prep you before the show, and I know you can easily answer this. To this day, what do you think the biggest impact you've made? Pick a story out of an impact you've made.
An impact I've made, I think I have been consistent. I started this agency 25 years ago. We're one of the largest Christian ad agencies in the world. And I think the impact that I've made is I was just dumb enough not to quit, Steve. And I think I've just been consistent, And the impact is, we're talking a little bit before the show about, showing the next generation, of what commitment looks like. I think that's what the impact that I have. I'm not perfect, man. Not even close. And I'm a sinner saved by grace. But, I love the Lord, and I do the best that I can with the current resources available to me in the moment. That's how I define excellence. But I just look back at my career and I go, man, 25 years of doing the same thing. Like, I've stayed committed to the process. I've stayed committed to my marriage. I've stayed committed to my kids. I think just being committed and being there and available is something that I hope that one day when I leave this earth, that, that's what people look back on me and say, you know what? He wasn't perfect, but he was committed.
Well, legacy too. I'm just thinking, the legacy when you do leave this earth, that what they're going to say. And I love commitment. I never thought about that as an impact. But your family, your friends, your clients, your employees. I mean, it's a large number of people, which we all want to try to do, hopefully, do that. And you said you do your best, which is why I love the quote that I mentioned, the gratitude.
Yeah.
Talk about doing your best with faith and with athletics and sport and business.
Yeah, man, it's a really cool question. I think that, the way I've coached executives and athletes in my career is that, we don't live in a perfect world, and everything is not awesome all the time. And so I think there's this image out there, especially with social media, that perpetuates a lie. And the lie is, if you're not awesome all the time, what's wrong with you? when the reality of it is how the world works is peaks and valleys. And so I've looked at peak performance. I've studied it's with my doctorates in. I look at this mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. For you to be on the peak, you have to be, on the peak mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I call that MEPS. And so that's really impossible to attain. It just doesn't work that way. Can we have 2 out of the 4? Yeah. 1 out of the 4? Yeah. But all 4 out of the 4, super, super hard. And so I look at that and I go, okay, the peaks and valleys of life, like giving gratitude. I love your opening message. Giving gratitude in the valley is really where your true character shows. It's easy to be grateful when everything's going awesome. It's easy to thank the Lord when it's awesome. But what about when you're in that valley and giving it all to the Lord, saying, you know what? What's the lesson? I can tell, just interact with you a very short period of time, Steve, that you're always looking for the lesson. You're always looking for the opportunity. And that's really cool. And that to me tells me that you have a phenomenal self-image of who you are and who you are in Christ. And that's a powerful attribute to have.
And it makes our valleys less deeper. Probably the wrong words to say. They don't go as deep, our valleys, as
Yeah.
others.
Yeah,
And
that's
those
true.
valleys
You
can be
still
deep.
have them, but they're more like, like little moleholes, instead of
Exactly.
giant mountains, Yeah.
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 Thinking you're in a car, you hit that bump. It's like
Yeah.
your car go, oh, how's my axle? Okay, the axle good. Okay, we'll keep going in the journey.
That's
I
it.
love it. David, it reminds me of the Vince Lombardi quote. We'll go back to the NFL. Incredible man. He wrote, striving, and I'm butchering this, but striving to perfection will lead to excellence. Is that
Mhm.
kind of what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, so I've over the years, I've really kind of looked at perfection and excellence, and perfection is only one person who's perfect, and that was Jesus. Perfection is not attainable. It's not in anything you do. And so the chase of that is more inhibited in your it's more unhealthy to chase perfection because you're become stressful and have anxiety. Whereas if we look at excellence and the definition of excellence, at least how I've defined it over the years, is doing the best that you can with the current resources available to you in this moment. So like an athlete's, career, my arm hurts. Okay, well, I'm chasing X. I'm doing the best that I can. Now, the best that I can needs to be, we need to put some attributes to that. But really saying I had quality focus, I had 100% energy, I got enough sleep, I did everything I could with the resources that I have. On the business side, a lot of times we don't have enough budget to do a project and we don't have enough time. So we go, okay, how can we leverage the best that we can right now? Let's treat this as excellence. We don't have a year, we have a week. We don't have $1,000,000, we have $10,000. Right. And so you look at that and go, here are the limitations, but how can we do the best with it in this moment? And that is excellence. At the end of the day, you can go to bed at night if you did the best that you could and say, you know what? This came out pretty cool because I attempted to go down every single path to make this great. And so that to me, that alleviates the stress and the anxiety, right? That perfect is not attainable.
You just did it for me. That's why I took a sign. I'm like, I just felt this calm because your resources you have. I think people try to pull those out of the air, try to imagine. Like you said, we'll find it. We'll talk to everybody. Use what you have right now. Next
Yeah.
week might be different. And
Mhm.
that's presence too, which the faith teaches me, and sure it's taught you. What's present right now? We're on a podcast. We're trying to impact people, right?
When I talk to coaches, there's a line that I draw, right? And it's the team that you want versus the team that you have. Like, during tryouts or during, when we're drafting players at the end of all that, you go, you have to draw the line, say, this is the team that I have. Now, how can I be excellent with it? Right? Not the team that I want. The team that I wanted is gone. That didn't happen. So this is the team that I have. Now let's look at the resources within that and let's be great with the team that I have and be thankful for the team that I have. A lot of times it's always change this out, do this, change that. And this is where the anxiety goes, where you're changing so much, you don't allow the people in the room to, locker room, boardroom, whatever it is, to have the empowerment to be great, because you're not empowering them, because you're looking at them like this is like second class. Like this isn't what I wanted. This is what I have. So you're not good enough. That's not a good way to be treated.
Yeah, I've heard guys talk about great coaches when they've got a not their team and are successful. That's the definition of a great coach. Just like you said, didn't have the team I want. This is what I have. Same with business. That CEO or manager you work with. Here's the employees I have. Yeah, I wish they were quicker or this or that, but how can we make it work? It's
How can we make it
so
work?
relieving, right?
It is.
Emotionally, especially.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now you start like with my team, I look at the talents that they have, and over the years, I think I've been pretty good at finding what they do well at, and then building the business around that, and then being able to adapt to it. One of my favorite books is Who Moved My Cheese? And with Sniff and Scurry and Hem and Haw. A lot of times we hem and haw too much, and we know from that book that hem and haw, they just hem and haw and they wait for the cheese, while Sniff and Scurry are out there, running around the maze and collecting what they can. And I think COVID was a great example of that, where people just hem and hawed, and they just sat and did nothing. Whereas people that were Sniff and Scurry were out there, finding ways.
Yeah, I called a great separator, COVID, because the businesses that were great, that do what you did, are still around today, especially restaurants, is a perfect industry around here in Northern California. 30-year-old restaurants gone, but they wouldn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Restaurants brand new, they made the change. Outdoor, whatever that looked like, and they're still here today. I love that. Let's jump into the book because it's
Yeah.
one of the best titles I've ever heard. Because I try to do this every day. Play to win. Talk about the book.
Plan to win. This is me. This is my fourth book. This is me putting everything in the last 25 years of building my Christian agency called M is Good. I kept a journal all those years, and I took stories of what has happened in the Christian world from my perspective, and I've bumped it up against what I think are the adversary's tools to divert us from our vision. And so this is where I call it your flap, which is kind of a weird, fun name. But so it's your fear, your lust, your anger, and your pride. So these are what's called toxic motivators. There's a bunch of other toxic motivators, but these are the four major ones. Just like in sports, let me back up just for a second. I played hockey. And so, when we would go play against a team, we would look at that team and go, wow, they got these players. We have to watch them. They're fast. They move the puck well. They have good goaltending. We would look at this and say, okay, how do we play against this? And Steve, I know you've been around long enough to know that the adversary has kind of the same tools that he goes after. He wants to cripple us with our fear instead of having faith. He wants us to lust over things, and in doing this research, I looked at lust, and most people think it's pornography, but it can be that. Wasn't my thing, but thank God. But I know a lot of people struggle with that. But lust also is in people, power, and possessions. We lust for different things versus, being giving and loving. And then anger, this is pretty prevalent in sports. You can see this as well, versus being, having forgiveness and patience. And then pride. The Bible talks about pride being, the pride comes before the fall. And so that's where we need to have humility. And so I looked at these toxic motivators and said, okay, if this is the adversary's game plan, then how can I be aware of it, and how can I be better? Not be perfect, but be excellent. I've also looked at these toxic motivators that they're like stress and anxiety. Like you don't eliminate stress, you don't eliminate anxiety, you manage it. And so in this book, I just really call it out, and I say, okay, here they are. here's this fear, lust, anger, pride. Now, how can we be mindful of it? And what does it look like when I'm fearful, I'm lustful, and I'm angry, and I'm pride? And so having that just awareness to it is the beginning to making a change so that you can get these out of the way so you can one day hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah. I love that. Win. It's such a, it's a, not a toxic word, but it's a word that's very perspective wise. Your win's different than my win in in business and sports. How does somebody listening go, how do I define a win? What does a win look like?
It's such an awesome question. And when I get into this, people ask me, how do you define winning? And here's my definition. Definition of winning, from my perspective, is I am closer to a relationship with Jesus today than I was yesterday. That's winning.
Easy.
It's easy. Well, easy in theory.
Well, no,
Yeah.
easy. The step is easy. It's the action is the tough part. We can
Yeah.
always know what it is, but the action's always tough.
If we look at winning as I have more commas in my bank account, then that's that lustful side of it. If I look at winning as more possessions, right? Or, a faster car, newer car, bigger house, multiple houses, bigger, boat, faster boat, all this stuff that the world tells us, it's really just perpetuating that toxic motivator. That's the motivator. And so when we lead with vision, the antidote to this is vision. Is, how am I aligned and how am I glorifying the Lord with my talents and my abilities? And so we want to move these toxic motivators aside, manage them better, and really lead with vision.
Yeah, it's powerful. I get asked all the time, and the perfect answer to this is I'd like to bring faith into my culture and my business, but I'm scared. How do they do it?
Yeah. The answer is not easy, or is it? I get it. Um, I've been fortunate enough to just be building a Christian agency, my whole life since I was 25. And, that question of do I have to negotiate my faith was never in question. Now, there was a time in 2013 where I was going to go, okay, I'm going to just not be a Christian agency. And the Lord shut that down. But I do get the weight of, you know what, I'm in this secular business. I'm making a lot of money. I have a career here, but I just don't feel spiritually fulfilled. I get that that's tough. And we look at church and we look at Bible study and we look at other outlets to fulfill that void. And I would just say that, there's another level to this, Steve, that I think that most people maybe overlook, and so to me, it's not like I have to read my Bible in front of my employees, right? Like, and you don't have to, you know, you just don't have to be the overly Christian guy. What I think the answer to this is that when you aren't great, you glorify the Lord. The fruits of the spirit, love, peace, patience, joy, those fruits of the spirit come out. I have if I could tell this story real quick. Yeah. So years ago, I had this really nice production facility, and it was about 17,000 square feet, and we designed the whole thing. And like the one side of it was this glass office, and my VP had the office. It was all glass, and it overlooked the parking lot. And behind the parking lot was a pond. And my VP at the time, he was a bird watcher. He grew up, like watching birds. His dad took him to the migration, every year. I think it was up in New Jersey where the birds migrate, and they have a journal and they'd write down like, all the different species of birds. And like, it was a really, at first I thought it was weird that he watched birds, but then as I started talking to him, I'm like, this is pretty cool, man. Like he could see every bird, whether it's male or female. And so anyway,
That's
we're
cool.
sitting it is very cool. And so we're sitting in his office one day, and there was this group of birds over by the parking lot near the pond. And there was probably like 12 of them, and they were pecking at the ground. And one of the birds was gangly looking. It just looked weird. and it was pecking at the ground. It was taller than the other birds, and it didn't look fully developed. It almost looked like had been washed up on a stream kind of thing. And I was like, "Hey, Jason, what is that bird right there?" He goes, "Oh, that's an eaglet. It hasn't figured out that it's an eagle, but once it does, it'll fly majestic over ponds and rivers, and and pull out fish, and we'll be pecking at the ground." And I thought, "Oh my gosh, that'll preach forever, man. How awesome a story that is that." And I feel like, when you and I, if we're in Montana or Utah, Steve, and we're, in the mountains and we see this majestic eagle flying over the mountains, maybe in front of us or, 100 feet away from us, we would go, "Man, that's awesome." And I feel like a lot of times in our Christian walk, we have to be, so heavenly minded, we're no earthly good. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, if we just focus in on us and our relationship with the Lord and being great and being excellent of what God called us to do, we would look and say, "Man, I love being around Steve. Steve's awesome."
That is, don't be the eaglet, be the eagle, or grow up to be the eagle. But that's a great, I'm going to share that with many people. And that's just across faith and across the board. It's so powerful. It's interesting. Is that a Superman logo on your hat?
It is. Yeah.
You're filling the void very well here, my friend, because I'm feeling like you're Superman right now because I've got goosebumps. So I'm going to do something special for you in the audience. So audience, if you listen up to, we're almost at the end here, you're going to get Play to Win free if you reach out to Dave. We'll get his contact info. Don't worry. I know you're like, "Hey, all right, we'll get it. It'll be in the show notes." But he'll send you your contact info to me. I'll reach out and I'll ship you his book. Because in faith, in journey, we have to work together, collaborate our faith, and help each other build each other up. And Play to Win will do that for you. So the first 10 people that do that, I can't do everybody, but let's do the first 10. And then share it with people. See, the thing with his book, I guarantee you, anybody on this earth, I don't care where they live, they read his book, Play to Win, it's going to impact them in some way. We'll never know what that is, probably, but let's impact more people. Dave, last question. People listening, they're mostly business owners, entrepreneurs. What's the piece of advice? 25 years, you're successful. What's one piece of advice you can give them really take that next step tomorrow?
I just think that, specifically with your toxic motivators, is be open to that. Maybe this is driving your decisions. Just be open to it. I have a free assessment at plantowintoday.com, Steve, that people can go to. It's totally free. And it's like 6 to 8 minutes, ask you some questions, and it'll actually identify which motivators are driving you. When you get that and go, "Okay, anger is driving me," don't just brush it off and say, "No, it's not." Maybe look at your life and say, "Okay, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe I can have a little more forgiveness and patience." Or if it's pride, like pride is one of those very silent toxic motivators. It's and so is what I'm saying to people, am I trying to mask with pride? I know a lot of different business leaders. I work with them, and I definitely have some attributes of narcissistic behavior, that it's really toxic, and so looking at that and saying, "Okay, am I refusing counsel of others? Am I taking credit? Am I dismissing other thoughts?" Like this is one of the pride attributes of, what happens on a daily basis. So, my advice is just be open to the idea that maybe one of these toxic motivators are driving you. And, just you and I are talking here, Steve, chances are they are.
Oh, yeah. I'm raising my hand. Yeah. I'm going to take the assessment. And audience, you please take the assessment. And anger is interesting because in sports, it comes out physically.
So easily,
right?
Yeah.
But the invisible anger, that's what I call it, that, I go in my bedroom, I'm screaming at myself, either self-anger, or angry at my wife or whatever. Yeah, I'm taking the assessment when we get off. And of course, Dave, the Servant's Heart, has a free assessment for you. not trying to make a, I don't want you to say that. It's just a free assessment to get you guys started. Let's end with a fun question. I'm coming out where you live, and I'm going to ask you to find your favorite restaurant.
Okay.
We're going to go out to eat. There's two things I want you to do. I want you to first invite 3 people, whether dead or alive, who made a huge impact in your life. I think I know what number 1 is, but I'll let you answer that one. And number 2, your favorite food, because you're going to order food for the table.
Oh man, we're going out for a nice steak dinner, steak and potatoes.
Amen.
Yeah. So we're going to a nice steak restaurant for sure. And 3 people I'm inviting with me,
Yes.
like in physical, like they have to be here.
No, they could be passed away too.
Okay.
I've got some
Jesus,
magic. I can bring them back.
Is Jesus one of them?
Amen. Well, that was my number 1. I knew he was coming.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Jesus, my wife, and probably one of my mentors. Yeah. And of course you, Steve. You're coming out, right?
Well, I would be there. Yeah, we're going to set this table. Where? Fan, what's your wife's name?
Laura.
Laura, shout out to you, Laura. Yeah, I could tell you're a beautiful wife because this is an incredible man. And really thank you for taking the time and really just being humble and transparent and, writing a great book. And I'm going to support that book as much as I can. How can people connect with you and learn more and get a free book?
Yeah, so I would say go to plantowintoday.com. There's that free assessment. Once you take the assessment, there's a place. You don't have to do it, but there's a contact form to fill it out. And there's also, if you feel inclined to purchase the book, you can purchase it on Amazon right there as well. Yeah, that's the way to get up with me. plantowintoday.com. Yep.
Plan to win. And disclaimer, I think I said play to win earlier. He was so great, didn't correct me. I'm correcting myself. I'm being non-narcissistic by being humble. I made a mistake. Plan to win. Get the book. Get it free if you reach out and mention it. And you don't want a free book, just reach out because it's going to make a difference. And here's the other thing. Take the assessment. Just do that. I know thousands of you are going to watch this. You go take the assessment. Don't tell anybody. But man, what a way to impact yourself. And I thank Dave for doing that. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to Dave's podcast. What's your podcast again, Dave, right now?
It's the R7 Christian Marketing Podcast.
And then look for Plan to Win podcast coming soon. Do some search and you can go out and find that. And I think podcasts are really, truly God's gifts, like this podcast. If you're talking to somebody that's struggling with faith, I can't think of better podcast and a better person for them to listen to. For 10 minutes, take 10 minutes of their day. And guess what? The resources in front of them. Dave talked about it many times. This is a resource in front of them to help them. So with that being said, Dave and I want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.